The last movie that I managed to see before AMC, like most other movie theater chains, shut down until further notice was The Hunt. Now, The Hunt gained a bit of notoriety on the internet after its release was delayed from late September to the middle of March. And this is at least in part because of some mass shootings that had taken place around the time, but also the trailer seemed to make some conservatives not very happy, with Trump, as he usually does with this sort of thing, tweeting this. Now, he technically didn't name the movie, but he uses some of the exact same language as we see in the trailers, and these tweets alluding to the racist Hollywood elite and their dangerous movies came just a little over a week after the first trailer dropped. This seemed to spark some conservative outrage just from them reading the synopsis of the plot and watching the trailer with no further context, which is hilarious because that is the only way you could see this movie as being anti-conservative, by not actually watching the movie. The Hunt is a satire, and it takes shots left, right, and center, but there's clearly more punches being thrown left than any other direction. The whole movie is practically mocking the overly PC culture we see nowadays and the attitudes that the elites in this movie hold. And it's very important to note that these rich liberals are very, very clearly meant to be the bad guys in this movie. They frankly talk a lot like idiots and spout this pseudo-intellectual philosophy about what they do and why they do it, and it just makes them caricatures, which is what the movie seems to be going for. The main character is kind of meant to be the more grounded one of the cast. She just kind of rolls her eyes at everyone's political crap throughout the whole film and finds it really unimportant to herself and her survival. And then of course you have the hunted characters, most of whom we don't hear anything political from, and then the ones that you do, they range from reasonable, like mentioning that they have a constitutional right to carry guns, to Alex Jones' level of crazy, making racist remarks at a group of refugees. Also, for those unaware, this movie is based off of a short story called The Most Dangerous Game, which is about people hunting people, and then they added a bit of a modern political twist to it. The movie also embellishes itself with a lot of references to George Orwell's Animal Farm, and much like Animal Farm, this film has very little nuance. This movie is practically the definition of not as clever as it thinks it is. Some of the jokes that they make are super exaggerated, which is typical for a satire, but they're exaggerated in the wrong ways. The best example that I can think of this is at the beginning of the film, there is a woman who has fallen into a pit, and one of the guys nearby reaches in to try to help her, and he pulls, but he doesn't want to hurt her, so she then yells at him to stop being such a snowflake. The use of that word in and of itself is such a meme and a joke, but they didn't even use it in the way that people who actually use it unironically do. So you just get stuff like that all throughout the film. And the Athena lady makes the whole comment about deplorables in the beginning in what seems to be some kind of inside joke, but it should just left at that. The context for the joke isn't explored at all, and it's just a really strange thing for a person to say, like what she said in full, with no other context. I'm not gonna say it just in case you care about spoiler stuff, but it's like the equivalent of political articles trying to jam in as many buzzwords into the headline as possible to get people to click. And what do you know, these parts were largely what was at the forefront of the marketing and what ended up causing a lot of the outrage in the first place. I found like all of the outrage to be really ridiculous, especially on the end of the more conservative types being upset without actually seeing the movie. But the film is not promoting the rounding up and execution of conservative people. They really needed to just calm their tits about that one. And even the part related to the mass shooting seems so unnecessary. Like, yes, these are tragedies, but this movie isn't about a mass shooting or anything. It is an action flick based on a 1924 short story about people killing each other. It was probably gonna have guns in it. People did not need to get upset over it. Talking more about some of the technical filmmaking and writing aspects now, overall The Hunt isn't super clever, but it's not completely terrible for a B-action flick. Some of the jokes are genuinely funny, even if some of the others are just way over exaggerated, and the action sequences are pretty well done. Pretty much all of the action takes place on a much smaller scale than what you see from most action movies. It's typically confined to one space where characters have to be somewhat clever to get out of situations, and it doesn't always rely on just having a shootout, but also on hand-to-hand combat and some good old-fashioned wrestling at the end. Most of the characters are very one-note and uninteresting, and the main character by default is kinda the most interesting one to watch. We really don't get much characterization for anyone. The main character has like a single scene where she talks a little bit about her past, and then at the ending we get some minor exploration with the villain, though that really doesn't make a ton of sense, but I will get there at later. The pacing is fine, it's 2 hours long but didn't feel very long, and it kind of meanders a little bit in the middle, but when something does happen, it's at least somewhat engaging. engaging. The performances for most are very brief, but I guess the two that I can mainly talk about are the main character and the main villain. Betty Gilpin gave an interesting performance, and I say interesting in a positive way. It's less her performance at times and more the directing that seems off, and I question some of the decisions as to what they told her to do, but she herself did a good job and was able to hold the movie. I didn't like the performance from the villain. She was just so stereotypically witchy and bitchy, and it was kind of eye-rolling. I also think that came mostly from the script and the direction, because she was just more annoying than anything else. Like when she talks about her big grand plan at the end and why she does it all I could really think was, this is so dumb, and I am not being convinced at all by what she's saying. But for most of the movie that is focused on the main character and what she does, those are the best parts to get engaged in. Most everything else is incredibly forgettable or not worth remembering. I should also note that the very beginning of the movie is like pretty awful. Like it is just so painfully mediocre in that whole trying to do something new and unexpected but ends up just being really dumb kind of thing. But if you can get through the first 15 minutes, you may find yourself enjoying what you see after that. This isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea, but if you like action movies, I think you will at least find something enjoyable out of this. This might be the first film I've ever reviewed where I have found it easier to talk about most of the film in non-spoilers, but I want to touch on a couple of quick things, so spoilers from here on out. I do not get that whole snowball thing. Why was it that one particular tweet that was so offensive to this Athena lady that the justice for y'all girl was deemed snowball? And what was the point of deciding a person was a snowball in the first place? Like, she wasn't in on it. Like, my guess would be that she was supposed to be the last person alive, and the villain orchestrated the whole thing that she would show up at the house at the very end. I think that's what the script wanted to go for, but that would have to be like Palpatine taking over the Republic levels of convoluted to make that work. Also, the conclusion at the end seemed to be that the villain was the snowball or the idealist in the context. Is she really the idealist in this situation? She got mad that people believed a conspiracy theory about her, so she rounded up some of them and decided to kill them all. Idealism, kids. I also don't get why her face wasn't revealed until way later in the film. That was really odd and kind of stupid. Absolutely nothing came out of that. I don't know if that actress is super famous, maybe she is, I just did not recognize her and I was confused about it. It's also hard to believe that they somehow just got the wrong person when they seem to have a picture of the girl that we see in the movie attached to the account where the comment was made, but oh wait, it's all an allegory and meant to mean something, so it doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense. This movie is not good for its philosophical musings at all. I was just more in it for the action, so if that sounds like something you'd like, I'd maybe check it out. So to wrap up, I know that it has been an insane last couple of weeks for everyone. My family has been having to do a lot of work around the house, and I lived with immunocompromised family members, so we've been taking precautions, not panicking, just trying to be prepared, and I hope you guys will do the same. Maybe I'll actually be forced to work on some of the videos that I have planned, because I know I have been very bad about getting videos done lately. Life just be like that sometimes. But let me know what you guys thought of the movie below. Feel free to check out more from me and hang around the channel if it interests you. But until then, stay safe and clean, wash your hands, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.